First of all, I'd just like to thank you all for the very interesting and fascinating presentations you had. So much to be, let's say, happy about in view of tomorrow's discussions. Now, when it comes to my term, I chose the term subject. Now, the subject, which is of course an old term, but through, let's say, seen through a different lens or perspective. I really wanted to keep it simple and strict. So when I hear subjectivization, I immediately think, of course, of different takes on what this term or concept is. Now, of course, I was very happy that just now Michel Foucault was mentioned, of course, where we all know that in his philosophy or his take on subjectivization, it's basically that the subject is discursively produced. Of course, Althusser was mentioned, his theory of interpellation, where the subject again is produced through interpellation. Then of course we have Jacques Rancière. Here subjectivization is a bit different, but not quite, and of course we have Badiou and on and on and on. Now what all these theories, let's say philosophical theories, have in common when it comes to the subject is that the subject is something that comes afterwards. And now, for instance, in terms of, if we take the work of Alain Badiou, we would say the subject is, let's say, the individual or the human being that becomes, in terms of the truth event, faithful to the truth event. In his terms, of course, communism. In Jacques Rancière's term, we have a subject who is a subject absolutely of equality, and so on and so on. Now what this perception, let's say, what this viewpoint misses is what psychoanalysis brings in, which is a complete redefinition of subject and object. What do I mean by this? Now, of course, I don't only mean or refer to Sigmund Freud, I of course refer to Jacques Lacan. Now the scandal of Jacques Lacan was, of course, also considering his anti-philosophy, that he returned to the modern subject or the subject of modern science and so on. Now the scandal is that his subject, which is the subject of unconscious, of the unconscious, is an internal hindrance. So the subject is not a human being, not an individual and so on, but strictly an instance that hinders everything. But, and this is the funny part, which is strictly rational. So this is what's key when it comes to the unconscious. Now, a lot of here, a lot has been said about the body and so on. Let's say somatic knowledge and so on. Now, I don't know about Susan Buck-Morss, but somatic knowledge, I don't know where that quote's from, but somatic knowledge will in fact be the symptom. So this is also the key when it comes to the subject of the unconscious, something that blocks you, something. If we, for instance, talk of interpretation, we can be rational, we can interpret, yet we'll be interpreting at night also. So this is something that has absolutely no consideration for your well-being, for whatever it is, let's say your pleasure principle and so on. So from that viewpoint, it's so completely alienating that even your utmost intimate experience is alien to you, and something you can actually not take on. Now, why is this relevant? It's relevant because, of course, it's completely rational. This is funny to top it off, because the unconscious is nothing that's, let's say, deep or something dark, etc., etc. It's something that's actually difficult to subjectivize. And I mean, the whole process behind psychoanalysis, why this I think for me really important, because you can actually talk of the subject before subjectivization. In what terms? The subject would be a lack with absolutely no substantial positive features. This is what you have to imagine. Or I really like that the term Unruhe was actually used here, because from the Lacanian viewpoint or the reading of Hegel, Unruhe, what causes this unrest is absolutely the inmixing of this void, of this lack, after the subjectivization actually happened. So what actually disturbs the human subject, so to speak? So here we have many terms of what the subject actually can mean. What disturbs the individual, the human subject, let's say the ego, etc., or the body, is another subject, which is precisely the subject of the unconscious. And the correlate of this subject is the object. So psychoanalysis not only redefines the subject, but also redefines the object. Now the object is not simply this material, let's say this table in front of you. The object is something that emerges. Now I was really happy when I read about the time-specific works. The thing is, I think the key here is the non-coinciding of the object with itself. And this is exactly what would be the Lacanian definition of the object. Nothing but this no coinciding of itself with itself. So, and in a way, this of course also is the correlate of the object. That doesn't mean that the subject and the object are the same thing, but that the unconscious, the subject of the unconscious, is in the end story. Because ultimately, for instance, you know very well that, let's say, Freud's interpretation of dreams, but it's not that we interpret dreams, but that dreams are then by themselves already interpreting something. Now that which, let's say, blocks the actual unconscious interpreting is the object. It's just nothing but that something more. Nothing but, let's say, a positivized black, a positivized void, nothing more. And from this perspective, subjectivization would be nothing but the subjectivization of a lack. And that name for this is, of course, the subject. Now, why is this important from the viewpoint of art and art history? If we take a look at this a bit closely, I mentioned the name Daniel Arras. I don't know how many of you are acquainted with him, but for me personally, besides Hubert Damisch and some other art historians, he's a very important figure. The only art historian I know that really came close, I mean, almost exactly to the same definition of the subject as would a, let's say, a Lacanian, is Daniel Arras. Now, he develops his, let's say, concept of the subject as a difference, nothing but a name for a difference, through his analysis of the Renaissance and onwards. Because what he's ultimately tracing is the emergence of an I in the art. Not of an I that will say I am and so on, not an I that speaks, but in this case an I that paints itself. An I that does, let's say, installations and so on. And the, let's say, a very simplified trajectory of looking for the subject through art history would be with, first, establishment of the tavola quadrata, or the quadro in the Renaissance, of the frame, and it is exactly this that will be decomposed, so to speak, with the advent of the modern age. Now, a new theory, what is happening with the I, with the establishment of the ego, and then complete decomposition with the advent of the modern age and postmodern science, is that when it comes to art, especially when it comes to painting, the question of the frame, and you now have a whole new theory of how to explain, let's say, artistic practices after the Second World War, let's say even body art, even happening, etc., from what was going on in painting. Now this is exactly what, let's say, some French art historians are now doing. How to, let's say, understand the emergence of these new practices in art through what was going on actually in painting, and consequently what was going on with the subject. So, of course, I will say more tomorrow during the discussions, but what is really interesting here, if the subject is, let's say, a cut, a split, as I say in my short draft, what was interesting here, and here's my short summary of what I was hearing today. The circumstances, the contextualizations, let's say, localities and so on, all very important, and in a way indebted to art history, because the ultimate, let's say, if you go from the iconography to iconology and so on, the last level is always in placing a certain work of art in its locality, be it time-wise or geographical, etc., even autobiography and so on, autobiographies. But all these contextualizations, which was really beautifully proven today, no matter how you they stick with the specificity, and it's very good to stick with it, of course, because I mean, what I saw today was that this question of the subject as a cut and so on, as a rupture, as a discontinuity, is actually what proper contextualization does. It circumscribes all these points of breaking, be it in South Africa, be it in Russia, be it in Spain, wherever, be it in terms of leisure, where you basically, as I see it, create or make time for something else that is considered possible and impossible within a certain frame. Now, if this is pure expenditure or pure waste of time, whatever. So, again, this is the proper question of the subject in terms of subjectivization. Something that is nothing but the name for a rupture or for a break or for a discontinuity. And this is what I think we should follow. So I wouldn't say, for instance, if this is radical or not, but I think in a way the question of the subject is enough, because we know in art history that this question was completely, in some way, if it wasn't for Daniel Darras and some other people, brushed under the rug. So it was completely inexistent. Now with the ongoing, let's say, still ongoing, unfortunately, onslaught of cognitivism, brain sciences, and so on, there is absolutely no. This is what is really worrying to me, because this is complete and total anti-enlightenment. And I still believe in enlightenment and its heritage. And whatever you may say against the modern age, against Descartes, and so on, these people open the place for us from which we actually can criticize them. So, and this place could only be open, for instance, when it comes to Descartes and so on, because Descartes' cogito is Lacan's subject. This is what he does. The certainty of doubt, of a break, of a discontinuity. So, just to, let's say, we all come from different places, and on some of us and so on. But I think this question of the subject is best seen again in the old topic of multiculturalism. When I talk of multiculturalism, I don't mean going down chop of a street here in India and seeing, McDonald's, Japanese restaurant, Chinese restaurant, Spanish restaurant. That would be globality. Multiculturalism or globality. Now, a proper one. Basically, where can I start talking with a person from South Africa? Where can I start talking from a person from, let's say, Spain, from Brazil, etc., etc.? It's exactly at the where we meet is the spot where we both have a minimal distance towards our own contexts. This is what actually enables us to think them. A minimal distance. And for instance, in socialism, if we talk of cynical distance, which was of course a part of the establishment system, it would be a distance towards this distance. So I think this, for me, is what the question of subjectivization actually brings to the table, is the question of the subject, and what actually this could mean in art or in art history or any discourse on